Assalamu alaikum and good evening. Viewers, after months of disagreement, the federal government has finally managed to get the PTI leadership on board to support the government policy on terrorism against Pakistani Taliban insurgency. After meeting with Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf Chairman Imran appreciated the government's efforts to negotiate with terrorists. The leadership of the two parties agreed on members for a new committee to represent the government in the dialogue process with TTP. On the other hand, Pakistani rupee gained momentum against dollar. According to Finance Minister Ishaq Dar, government will try to make Pakistan the 18th largest economy by 2025. In a rare acknowledgement, he said that a friendly Muslim nation gave $1.5 billion for Pakistan development funds. On the other hand, there is Saudi Arab's fierce campaign against Muslim Brotherhood. Now, some questions arise here. What's happening in Gulf states between Saudi Arabia, Bahrain and Qatar? What will be the future of peace talks after formation of new committee for peace for Taliban, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan? How Imran Khan suddenly started praising government? Will the decrease in dollar price benefit a common man? Who is responsible for the third tragedy? We will discuss all these issues in our show today. And as you know, viewers, in my show, Mr. Zaid Hamid joins me. Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Zaid Hamid. As you know, that the recent development that happened this week is the meeting between Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif and Imran Khan, chairman of PTI. And then they both agreed on continuing the peace talk process. But before we get started, let's see what does Imran Khan has to say after this meeting at his residence in Banigala.
हमें मुश्किल नहीं होगा उनसे जंग जीतना, तो बजाय इन सबको इकट्ठा कर दें ऑपरेशन करके, तो मैं ये गवर्नमेंट की पॉलिसी को हम तायद कर रहे थे और हमने उनको बैकिंग किया पूरी। जो गवर्नमेंट की कमेटी है उसके अंदर रुस्तम शाह मोमंद हमारे नुमाइंदे हैं और वो उनको रिटेन किया गया है क्योंकि उनका अपना स्टेचर है, उनका एक एक्सपीरियंस है। और मुझे ये भी बड़ी खुशी है कि आज एक नेशनल कंसेंसस डायलॉग पे बना है। वो चीज़ जो 10 साल से तहरीक-ए-इंसाफ रो रही थी कि डायलॉग भी कर लो, शुक्र है कि आज एक नेशनल कंसेंसस बन रहा है उसके ऊपर। लेकिन ना जो लड़ना चाहता है, जो डायलॉग करना ही नहीं चाहता, जो डायलॉग को सैबोटाज करना चाहता है, तो जाहिर है हमारे पास दुनिया की एक ताकतवर फौज है, हम उनका मुकाबला कर सकते हैं। लेकिन देखिए सबसे बड़ा मसला ये है, जो लोग ग्राउंड ऑपरेशन नॉर्थ वजीरिस्तान की बात कर रहे हैं उनको पता होना चाहिए कि 7 लाख पाकिस्तानी शहरी बसते हैं जिसमें औरतें, बच्चे, बूढ़े लोग हैं जो लड़ नहीं रहे। वो बमबारी होगी, उनका क्या बनेगा? अक्लमंदी ये है कि हम बजाय एक ऑपरेशन करके वहाँ उनके बच्चे मर जाएं, औरतें मर जाएं, वो भी बंदूकें उठा लें। ये कौन सी अक्लमंदी है? सजेशन ये है कि देखिए मुज़ाकरात स्ट्रक्चर्ड होते हैं, पहाड़ों की गारों के अंदर मुज़ाकरात नहीं होते।
Yes, Mr. Zaid Hamid, as you saw Mr. Imran Khan saying after the meeting that today a national consensus has been formed for the peace talks policy. How do you see the meeting of Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif and Imran Khan, and why have they come together against within the peace talk policy?
You see, after listening to what Imran has said and what Nawaz Sharif has been doing previously, a quote of Churchill comes to my mind, and he said, "To avoid a war, you accepted shame and humiliation, and now you have both at hand." See, this is the tragedy. Imran and Nawaz, both of them have been humiliated in the country because of their stance of trying to negotiate with the foreign-backed terrorists. The people, the terrorists, the insurgents, the Takfiri Khawarij, who had waged a religious insurgency against the state of Pakistan for the last 10 years, have killed almost 100,000 people. The whole Pakistani state has been devastated. And these are not independent groups. We know this for fact, that they are backed by Indians and they are backed by CIA, based in Afghanistan. And instead of talking to their handlers, Imran and Nawaz Sharif and likes of them have been suggesting, strongly recommending the surrender of the Pakistani state. That Pakistani state should come down to the level of these cutthroat terrorists and surrender itself in front of them and bring them on a negotiating table at par with the Pakistani state. Now this humiliation which they have accepted to avoid a war would bring them both humiliation and war. Now this is what is happening, and this is the tragedy. That now, since the start of this year, you saw that the first 3 weeks of January were the bloodiest in our history. The TTP was waging a ruthless campaign of terror. Army responded, and when the army did precision strikes on them, immediately TTP sued for peace. And then there was another period of 3 weeks and 4 weeks when army was put on hold, and again a campaign of terror again emerged against Pakistan, and then army struck again. So this cycle has been going on. When army strikes them, they're decapitated, they're crushed, they're pushed back, the terrorists. But the moment army starts to put a stranglehold around these terrorists, these politicians move in to protect the terrorists. And this is making the nation and the army
So you said
furious.
that the politicians move in to protect the terrorists. Now there's another new committee has been formed. And in this committee, the new members are Habibullah Khattak, who's the federal secretary. He is the head of this committee. Then there is Fawad Hassan Fawad, additional secretary to PM. And then Faraz Arbab Arif, and then PTI's Rustam Shah Mohammad. So Major Amir is not there. He's been eliminated. And then
the question to ask is,
Siddiqui has been eliminated.
You see, what is happening is we have explained that before as well, that this few months of winters were extremely critical for Pakistan army to eliminate the terrorists in the sanctuaries of the North Waziristan. Because the mountains are snow-clad, their exit routes were choked, and because of the snow, the terrorists were not able to cross the mountains into Afghanistan, their safe sanctuaries. And now what the government is doing is using a delaying tactic, allowing the snows to melt on the mountains, so that all the chokehold which the Pakistan army has on those pockets of North Waziristan where the TTP insurgents are holed up right now, they would get an exit route into Afghanistan. The question to ask is, why the government has made this second committee? Why the first committee failed? What happened? It was the committee formed by the government itself. They have not given us any reason why they are making another committee now. And what is the delivery? What is the result of the first committee? Why did it fail?
Nisar is saying this new committee will have direct peace talks with Taliban, and then this committee will be supported by army as well.
You see, rubbish. The fact of the matter is, the first committee
so these authorities were not given to the first committee?
The first committee also had helicopter access. They went to North Waziristan. They had negotiations with the direct access to the TTP insurgents. They had direct access to the Prime Minister. So all this rubbish that he's giving now, for the sake of speaking to the gallery, that this new committee will have more access to the TTP or to the insurgents, is absolute rubbish. The first committee was equally powerful. They had all the access to the state resources to talk to the insurgents, and they did talk to the insurgents, and the insurgency continued, violence continued. And what the strategy, a new strategy which the TTP adopted is, now seeing that how stupid this government is, what the strategy is, one group will continue to attack, and the other main group will continue to deny involvement and promise investigation. So basically, they'll engage the army into government into peace talks, buy time, use delaying tactics while continuing the insurgency. The assassination of the...
Meantime, Ararul Hind and Ansar al-Mujahideen
there are absolutely fictitious names. They're fictitious names of new organizations they keep on creating every day. In reality, every TTP militant gangster militant is united under the umbrella of Mullah Fazlullah, the head of TTP, based in Afghanistan, backed by RAW and CIA. And with the delaying, basically what is happening is, again, Imran is actually speaking the language of TTP, giving this rubbish argument that 7 lakh people have to be migrated out of North Waziristan, and this is the entire population of North Waziristan. And what the army is saying and doing is, has been doing is, the army has not been operating against Afghan Taliban. Army has not been operating against the friendly tribes. Operations have only been done, precision strikes. The night F-16 raids and gunship helicopter raids using night vision devices and precision bombing has only been done on the TTP insurgent pockets, not on the Afghans, not on Pakistani friendly tribes.
Then Mr. Zaid Hamid, why has it been said that Nawaz and Imran joined hands against pro-war lobby?
You see,
who is this pro-war lobby then?
See, the pro-war lobby are the patriots actually. Because all the patriots in the country, you ask any man on the street, any soldier in the army, every officer of the Pakistan army, every patriot of the country wants Pakistan army not to waste time, move in and crush the militants in the hold-up pockets where the army has surrounded them now, finally. You see, there are recorded intercepts. There are lots of chatter going on between the militants. And there are recorded intercepts of militants crying hoarse over that communication, saying that army's precision strikes are so accurate that if this strike, if the blitz continue, the entire TTP would be eliminated without even putting up a fight. They are being hurt right now. They are being crushed right now. And let us give you a very, very serious report right now, serious news right now. Our sources within the militants, see, we have spies in them, we have contacts in them, we have friendly tribes who have access to them. The intercepts have been captured. The information has been brought to us, to our think tank, that the militants now are talking. There's a chatter, very high, loud chatter within the militants, that they are receiving chemical weapons from India to be used in the tribal areas in case Pakistan Army does operations against them. And this is profoundly critically serious, because they are trying to replicate the drama that Free Syrian Army did in Syria. The Free Syrian militants, backed by CIA, were given chemical weapons by the CIA. They used it, and the allegation was put on the Syrian army. And the fact of the matter is...
So, Mr. Zaid Hamid, what you just said, the news that you just said of having the chemical weapons being given to militants from India.
From India.
And then getting used in North Waziristan.
What their plan is, once the Pakistan Army starts operation against them, they would use the militants would use chemical weapon rockets in urban areas or tribal areas in some village, and the blame would go on Pakistan Army, because nobody would believe that TTP militants have access to chemical weapons. Nobody initially believed that Free Syrian Army would have access to chemical weapons. But later on, the evidence emerged that actually the chemical weapons which were used near Damascus, when the chemical weapons inspectors were present in Damascus, were not used by the Syrian army, but by the Free Syrian Army.
So what we are saying is that the same pattern that we saw in Syria regarding chemical weapons usage might happen in Pakistan?
This is the chatter which is going on within the militant ranks now. And I would like to take that chatter very seriously. This is dangerous provocation. And by delaying the militants, by crushing the militant, they don't have access to the chemical weapons yet. And this is the time when we can crush them now. If militants, for example, if Pakistan Army delays it and the Indians are able to supply chemical weapons, rockets to these militants, and when Pakistan Army goes into operation...
So right now they haven't been supplied to militants, but there are news that they will be supplied.
There's a very strong chatter of they are going to get these weapons from India.
We will take a break here, Mr. Zaid Hamid, after you have revealed such important news. Viewers, we will be back after a short break. Welcome back, viewers. Before going on a break, Mr. Zaid Hamid revealed that there are news that militants might get the chemical weapons from India to be used within Pakistan, just on the same grounds, on the same framework as they were used in Syria. Mr. Zaid Hamid, the news that you just revealed that militants might get the chemical weapons from India to be used within Pakistan as it was done in Syria, and then the allegations were gone on Syrian army. How authentic you will consider these news?
These sources, this chatter that has been going on within the militant ranks has been coming from different sources. And based on my experience within them, I would consider them very accurate. Because so far, all the weaponry, all the weapon systems that have been delivered to the militants have come from India, have come from through Afghanistan, have been supplied by the Indian intelligence. And this is the reliability level of this information, I would grade it very high. And that is why I'm revealing this now, through this program, to the Pakistani armed forces, to the Pakistan intelligence, to the Pakistan government as well, and to the international community, that India must be restrained from doing this kind of dirty, sinister trick against Pakistan. This entire campaign of terror is being waged by India. It's being waged by the Indian intelligence. And I will not be surprised if they go to this limit, especially when they have a model of Syria in front of them.
What about our intelligence agencies? What about our army? Aren't they be there to prevent something like this to happen?
You see, the fact is that...
when it's already been forecasted.
You see, the fact is that despite all the presence of security and intelligence agencies, Pakistan is undergoing a war, and enemies always have an advantage of surprise. And especially if it's a rocket which comes from, say, 20 or 30 kilometer range, it can even be fired from inside Afghanistan, and there's absolutely no way to prevent that. Already the militants have rockets which have 10 kilometer range, 107 millimeter multi-barrel rocket launchers. Militants are already using it. They've got sophisticated weapon systems, and now there are reports of even getting some SAMs, surface-to-air missiles also. And also along with the SAMs, they are probably going to get rockets with about 20 or 30 kilometer range having chemical warheads. So this is the new weaponry, and because militants have been planning for long, 2014 was going to be the decisive year for the militants. That's why they started their campaign of terror so early in this year. The first 3 weeks, as we said, we had warned earlier this year that 2014 is going to be the bloodiest year in our history, because the militants had regrouped, reorganized, rearmed, and are going to be relaunched because the Indians in the east are preparing their war doctrine cold start to be launched after Narendra Modi comes to power in May.
So how about, Pakistan being a nuclear power, and then these chemical weapons being used within Pakistan? How will that affect the reputation of Pakistan being a nuclear power?
You see, the point is that it will not affect the reputation of Pakistan as a nuclear state, but it would definitely humiliate and insult the Pakistan army, because the blame would go on the army. Nobody would believe that militants have chemical weapons. And everybody would say the Pakistan army or Pakistan Air Force has used them, just like in Lal Masjid operation in Islamabad. You remember that. When the operation was done against the hold-up militants in a mosque in Islamabad in 2007 or 8, the army only used smoke grenades. But the propaganda that was done till this day was that army used white phosphorus bombs to burn out the militants inside and used chemical weapons. So the propaganda against the army is already there, especially giving the example of Lal Masjid right in the heart of Islamabad, where only a conventional operation was done. No chemical weapons were used, but the propaganda is still there. And now if their real chemical weapons are used by the Indians through TTP inside Pakistani villages, the damage would probably be of a village or couple of villages, because the rockets, these 107 millimeter rockets or these small rockets, they are smaller weapons. But the propaganda war, the psyops, the perception management would be against Pakistani armed forces. So that is where it gets lethal. And that's where we are going to raise the alarm.
Zaid Hamid, TTP is already accusing the security forces of violating the ceasefire. They have said, TTP has said that security forces are violating ceasefire. How do you see this?
You see, what is happening is they're also accusing, TTP is also accusing Pakistani security forces of torturing their prisoners, of shifting them from one jail to another. Basically, what TTP wants is, while the peace deal is going on, their prisoners should also be treated well, and Pakistan army should not shift them, or they should not be intelligence agencies from one jail to another, because taking the advantage of this peace deal and ceasefire from the Pakistan army, the militants are reorganizing, regrouping, planning to make more jailbreaks. And this chatter is being intercepted. They have already done 2 major jailbreaks in Pakistan. Hundreds of dreaded terrorists have been released back into the battlefield to fight against the Pakistani state and kill the Pakistani people. And so when this chatter is being captured, intercepts are being made, the hardcore terrorists are shifted from one jail to another. And militants are even objecting to that. The militants should not be shifted. I mean, where the hell is it written that if there's a peace deal going on, you cannot shift a militant from one jail to another? So this is what we are saying. The militants are the TTP is only using this environment of peace talks to regroup, reorganize, plan more attacks, continue attacking and disowning it. So the strategy is very clear. And Imran Khan and Nawaz Sharif and the likes of them are betraying the state of Pakistan now. What they are doing is, they are not just supporting the terrorists, they're also giving them time to regroup and reorganize, and also allowing the snow to melt so that they can escape back into Afghanistan from the chokehold where Pakistan army has put them now. And the operation is only going to be precise. It's only going to be decisive against a pocket of terrorists, not against the tribal people in the region. There would be refugees, there would be people coming out. The battle is, the enemy would definitely try to spread the war, but this is the casualties of war. This is the price that we have to pay to eliminate this cancer from deep within our bones.
So, Mr. Zaid Hamid, we also saw the recent meeting of JCSC under the leadership of General Rashid Mahmood. How do you see that when he reaffirmed that the resolve of armed forces to fight terrorism under a strategy within policy parameters set by political leadership?
You see,
they will wait for the political leadership to set the parameters?
You see, Army would always give such statements in public. Army would never say. Can you imagine Army Chief or Chairman Joint Chief giving a statement, if we disagree with the policy of the Prime Minister and the political government, if they can go to hell and we'll do what we want? They'll never say that. They'll always say, we will work within the framework of the directions given to us by the political government. That's what he has said. This is the formal statement. Army only does whatever it wants on one occasion. Only on one occasion. When they want to stage a coup against the political government. For the rest of the time, all they would sound is hunky-dory. They would follow the political government. But let me tell you the fact. Army is furious, angry. They're seething in anger at the betrayal of the political government, especially at a moment when Army can see that they have surrounded the terrorists, they can eliminate them now, and the political government have put them on hold, not allowing them ground operations.
Mr. Zaid Hamid, in the beginning we were hearing that there might be one ISI representative in this committee, in this new members, he would be included to represent Army, and then those news got vanished away, and now we do not see any Army representative in this committee. But they say that this committee is supported fully by Army.
You see, that's what you're saying. The political government and the terrorists wanted to humiliate the Army, wanted to insult the Army, bring the Army down to the level of these cutthroats and make them sit in front of, the Army Chief is supposed to sit in front of Mullah Fazlullah. I mean, that's degrading the Army, that's humiliating the Army, that's elevating Mullah Fazlullah to the level of a national leader. This is something that Pakistan Army would never tolerate. So they refuse.
But then why in the past, if you look at it, in 2004, in those operations, Army was there. Army did play a role in all these agreements with Taliban.
Always, whenever, what happens is, whenever there's a local fighting going on, but when there's a local tribe, local villages, whenever there's a fighting going on, the concept of jirga always exists. Whenever some prisoners are captured, when Army soldiers are captured by the militants, their exchange takes place, engagement takes place. This lower level engagement between a level of lieutenant colonel or colonel or a level of brigadier perhaps, this is a normal thing. It happens in every battlefield, in every tribal area. But this is not a tactical, lower operational level engagement for release of few prisoners or to get access to a convoy or to release some TTP prisoners and all. This is a national level policy where it has to be decided where the Pakistani state is going to crush the militants or going to surrender to the militants and accept them as a stakeholder in the Pakistani state. Now this is the matter of life and death, and as we have said, the government, this government, wanted to avoid war and they accepted the humiliation and shame. Now they will get both, humiliation and war, because TTP is only gaining time, making a total fool of the state of Pakistan, making a total fool of the people and the politicians and the media. They do not plan any peace. They only want time to regroup. And this is something that these idiots can't understand. And now they will even have access to chemical weapons and surface-to-air missiles, because India plans to arm them with these weapons, because the 2014 is the decisive year for the survival of Pakistan. TTP, they will not let TTP lay their arms down. TTP is controlled by CIA and RAW.
Mr. Zaid Hamid, we will touch base on the other topic as well that happened last week. The development last week was the dollar value came down and it touched down to 97.90 rupees. And the value of rupee went up. So how do you see this change in the economical era of Pakistan? And then at the same time, you're getting the news that there is some funding being provided in Pakistan Development Funds from one of the Muslim country, probably Saudi Arabia, and that funding has given this jump start to Pakistan economy.
You see, you know about this fake false credit growth, paper currency based economic models, economic systems that we have in place. They are like stock exchanges where speculative buying and trading all takes place. Who decides the price of gold in the world today? Do you know that? Every day the jeweler says, today we have received this price, today the gold would sell at this. Who decides that? Nobody knows. Who decides? The IMF asks the government to devalue your currency. What does that happen? The government say, all right, today we sell the dollar, for example, for 100, tomorrow we'll sell it for 105. The government decides to devalue their currency. It's all speculative. It's all, you can do it at the whim of your decision. Today you can decide, the government can decide today that we'll sell the dollar at say 60 rupees a dollar. They can decide that. Nobody can stop them, because if they can devalue, they can reevaluate. But of course, then you have to pay the consequences. Your exports increase or decreases, and your prices, things gets expensive and all. What has happened is that this government, the total revenue generation strategy of this government has been taking loans, putting on taxes, and selling off the national assets. This is the entire revenue generation strategy of this government. What has happened recently is that Saudi Arabia has given them a gift of $1.5 billion. And this is the only money that this government have received without any conditions, without any loan. As a result, their foreign exchange reserves have swelled a bit. Their foreign exchange reserves have improved a bit. And that has created a speculation in the stock exchanges that now Saudi funding is going to come to Pakistan. Saudi Arabia is going to bail out Pakistan. Saudi Arabia is going to protect Pakistan's economy.
But what does Saudi Arabia want in return from Pakistan? So, why would he gift something
coming to
like
this
that?
point, so this in so-called decree, this improvement in the worth of rupee is nothing but perception management, is nothing but a fake perception management by the economic so-called wizards of this government. And in reality, it has no substance. There's no wealth generation in the country. There's no industrial output that has increased. There's no agriculture input that has increased. There's no tax. There's no deficit of...
But Finance Minister Ishaq Dar is saying that already after this appreciation in the rupee value against dollar, Pakistan's debt has been reduced to rupees 800 billion.
See, that would always happen. That would always happen.
Is it just a bubble that would burst? Or
see, it is, as I said...
Is it some stability that we are going to see in the economy?
There is no stability. This government is on begging, borrowing and stealing. And this is a begging that they have done from Saudi Arabia. They have not borrowed. That's why they feel a bit buoyant, because they have not borrowed at any high terms of interest. They've only begged for this money. And Saudis, you asked why the Saudis are doing this to us, is the fact is that Saudis are now totally isolated and afraid. They're very scared right now, because they have seen the Middle East collapsing.
Mr. Zaid Hamid, I have to interrupt you here. Before we go to the Gulf states and figure out what's happening there, why is Saudi Arabia running so many problems? We will take a break here. When we get back from the break, we will get back to this topic. Viewers, stay with us. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back, viewers. We would like to talk about why Saudi Arabia is having a fierce campaign against the Muslim Brotherhood, why Saudi Arabia, UAE have broken relations with Qatar, why fighting between these Gulf countries. But Mr. Zaid Hamid, before we come to this topic, I would like you to hear Mr. Ishaq Dar, our finance minister, saying after the devalue of a dollar and then the rupee value getting appreciated. Let's see what he has to say.
एक साथी इस्तीफे से भागने के लिए उन्होंने कहा कि जी पेट्रोल की कीमत 10 रुपए कम कर दें, तो इस तरह तो कीमतें कम नहीं होती कि मैं अपने घर में बैठ के मिनिस्टर इनक्वायरी में अनाउंस कर दूं कि सुबह 10 रुपए कम हो जाएगी। इसकी एक मैकेनिज्म है, इसमें वो एक कैलकुलेशन होती है। ओगरा इज इंडिपेंडेंट रेगुलेटर, वो अपना 31 मार्च को पूरे महीने की वर्किंग करेगा, क्योंकि ये अब जो प्राइसेस आज चल रही हैं पिछले महीने की हैं, और इस महीने में भी आपको याद होगा कि 4 आइटम्स की प्राइस की इंक्रीज की जो समरी थी और एक की कमी दे दी गई आवाम को। तो इन्फ्लेशन जो है वो करीबन अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह 8.6% 8 महीने की है। सो नथिंग टू वरी। आपने देखा कि बहुत सारी जो नॉर्मल किचन आइटम्स थी, कमोडिटीज थी, वो एक सर्ज जरूर आया, टमाटर में, प्याज में, शुगर, मुख्तलिफ आइटम्स में, और फिर वो ग्राफ ऊपर जाके फिर वापस नीचे आ गया। तो आज मैं समझता हूं कि दी मोस्ट एसेंशियल आइटम्स इंक्लूडिंग डॉलर, मैं प्याज और डॉलर को एक साथ मिला रहा हूं, प्याज, टमाटर और डॉलर में एक साथ मिला रहा हूं कि जब हम 5 जून को प्राइम मिनिस्टर नवाज शरीफ ने हल्फ लिया था, ये करीबन वो कीमतें उस सतह पे आ चुकी इंक्लूडिंग डॉलर। तो ये एक खुशआइंद बात है।
Yes, Mr. Zaid Hamid, as you heard our finance minister saying that the prices of tomatoes, onions and dollar have come down to when the Prime Minister took oath on June 5th, and the prices that were claimed then.
You see, that's what we are saying, that the entire economic strategy of this government is dependent upon IMF. And whatever he has been saying is nothing but economic jargon, which economists are very fond of. In reality, it has no substance. There is no wealth production in the country. The country is being run on begging, borrowing and stealing. He has the entire, not just the inflation, people are committing suicide. women are killing their children because of hunger. There's a drought going on in the country at the moment, in Thar, in Sindh province. And the government is having festivities, spring festivals all over the country, while the people are dying by the hundreds in desert. It's a national scandal. It's a national crisis. And the same finance minister is pretending as if everything is hunky-dory. These people are either masters of jugglery of words or they are insane. I'm still at a loss to figure that out. Because the country is collapsing economically. There is no, as we said, there's absolutely no energy in the country. There's no, factories are being shipped out of the country completely. Millions of people are being made jobless every 6 months. And they are still, they're like that queen, I remember, when it was reported to her that people don't have bread to eat. She said, why don't people eat cakes? And this is exactly what these ministers, the prime minister is actually behaving.
But Mr. Haqdar, he said that according to O'Neill, economist, Pakistan would be the number 18th economy country in 2050. He said we will do that in 2025 instead of 2050.
You see, Pakistan would become a superpower. I personally no doubt about that. The resources, the potential, the manpower that we have, all we need is the leadership. But one thing I'm definitely even more sure about is that will not be done at the hands of these morons. There will be different leadership, because this system, the entire system is collapsing. And as the developments that you see in the country right now, the status quo of this political system will not last long. The crisis which is going on, the conflict between, the battles between the state organs is still continuing. The battle between the army and the government, the battle between the army and the judiciary, the battle between the judiciary and the government. The issues of Pervez Musharraf's trial, the issue of missing persons, the issue of war against terrorism, where the government is actually ganging up, the political parties are ganging up together against the army and supporting the terrorists, and forming committees to talk to the terrorists where there is no political representative. This is the funniest part. No political party has sent their representative to talk to the terrorists while they are forcing the army to surrender in front of them. And when the army asks them to take responsibility, sometimes they appoint journalists, sometimes they appoint retired bureaucrats. Imagine.
But they have Rustam Shah Mohammed from PTI as the representative in that committee.
A retired bureaucrat. He is not a politician. The politicians who claim to be the national leaders avoid talking to the TTP while they are pushing the army to surrender. This is insanity. And this is where we say to the army, resist. Because when insanity becomes the law, resistance becomes patriotism.
Right. Mr. Zaid Hamid, another topic that I would like to touch base is Saudi Arabia. And I would like to know, why is Saudi Arabia doing a fierce campaign against the Muslim Brotherhood? Why UAE and Saudi Arabia are ganging up against Qatar?
You see,
what's happening in
lots
both
of things
countries?
are happening. The Saudi foreign policy is crumbling in the Middle East. Saudis are now, they stand isolated. They have been wreaking havoc in the Middle East, to be honest. Saudis have been sponsoring terrorist gangs in Syria. Saudis have overthrown the government of Muslim Brotherhood, Morsi, in Egypt. They have supported the military dictatorship there, brought about a coup against a first democratically elected government in Egypt in the last 4,000 years. And Saudis have sponsored violence, they have sponsored bloodshed at the hands of the Egyptian army. They are bailing out the Egyptian army, supporting them, backing them up. And at the same time, Americans are abandoning Saudis. Now this is the funny part. This is the critical part for Saudis, because Saudis feel that now their time is also up, their time is also closed, because Americans are now investing on Qatar.
But why are Americans abandoning Saudi?
Americans are investing on Qatar. You see, all the American investment right now is focused, their 7th Fleet, their military bases, their media headquarters, everything is based on Qatar. And Qatar has been competing with Saudi Arabia in the Middle Eastern politics. Qatar has been supporting the Muslim Brotherhood. Qatar has fallen out with Saudi Arabia on Syria. Americans are backed off. Qatar is backed off. Saudis still insist in bringing down the Bashar regime, supporting the insurgents and terrorists in Syria. In Yemen also, Saudi Arabia and Qatar clashed. There was a pro-Saudi president in Yemen, and there was an assassination attempt on him. Saleh, I think President Saleh, his name was. There was an assassination attempt on him. And the man who tried to assassinate him took refuge in Qatar. A couple of years ago, I was in Saudi Arabia, and I talked to some royal family members. And I asked them about Qatar. And the word they used was majnoon, means mad. The Qataris are mad people. And what is happening is the Qataris are now even claiming that lots of Saudi land belongs to Qatar, because Qataris are now buoyant. They know the Americans are backing them up. So the conflict between the Gulf states is widening.
Why is US backing off from Saudi Arabia?
You see, Saudi Arabia has become a liability for the Americans now. On one part, there are trillions of dollars of Saudi assets in America, which American economy needs to confiscate. And for that, they need to put some kind of allegation on Saudis and bring the regime down so they can confiscate trillions of dollars of wealth that the American economy has. Americans will never return it to them. Secondly, the Saudi doctrine, or the Saudi stand of continue falling out with the Americans has made Americans angry about it. Americans wanted to back off on Syria. Americans wanted the Saudi support on other Middle Eastern issues. But Americans have cut a deal with the Iranians also, and Saudis are furious with Americans on that as well. So it's not just Syria, it's Iran also, it's Yemen also, because and it's again Qatar who is competing now with the Saudis for the Americans' favor. And that is why you find for the first time in many decades the Gulf states are actually almost on the verge of fighting amongst each other. Arabs are falling out.
Right, so, they're head to head with each other.
And that is why the Saudis are coming back to Pakistan now for security and protection, because they know if anything goes wrong, no Muslim country would send troops to protect Saudi Arabia except Pakistan.
How would Iran react to this situation between the Gulf countries?
See, Iran would not interfere, but would definitely watching closely with great interest, because infighting amongst the Saudis or the Arabs in the Gulf region definitely strengthens Iranian stand. Irans have already checkmated Saudis by cutting a peace deal, by cutting a nuclear agreement with the Americans. Iran have already checkmated Saudis in Syria by using the Russian pressure to back off, to force the Americans and the Saudis to back off in Syria. So Iranians right now are very buoyant. They're very happy. Their foreign policy is very aggressive, and they are defeating Saudis in their foreign policy moves. And Saudis are not happy about it.
Mr. Zaid Hamid, let me share this with you, that according to think tank Stratfor, they say Saudi Arabia has run into serious problems for itself. Now, if Saudi Arabia runs into serious problems, how will that affect Pakistan? Will Pakistan be affected with all this or not?
That would definitely affect Pakistan. See, for lots of reasons, because there are at least, there are millions of Pakistanis working in the Middle East. And the maximum number of them work in the Saudi Arabia. Perhaps more than 1 million Pakistanis work there. And millions of dollars of foreign exchange reserve, which comes into Pakistani coffers, come through Saudi Arabia, where Pakistanis send those monies.
The remittances.
The remittances that come into Pakistan. And millions of Pakistani families are run on those remittances. The families, because over 1 million people are there, and many million people are fed, families are supported. So if Saudi Arabia
and
gets
even remittances are playing a big role in the economy of Pakistan.
So if Saudi Arabia gets into trouble, something like Syria or Iraq, or there's an infighting, or there's an economic collapse, or fighting between Qataris and Saudis, for example, with the very strong possibility that it might spill over into that. So it will create a major crisis for Pakistan, because Pakistan, if wants to defend Saudi Arabia, they'll have to fight against the Muslim countries, and that Pakistan would never do. And again, the remittances would stop. The anarchy in Saudi Arabia, if that spreads like the anarchy in Iraq and Syria or Libya, the people will have to come back into Pakistan. Joblessness, economic crisis would increase. So Pakistan and Saudi Arabia have been very closely integrated with each other over decades, and any crisis in Saudi Arabia would definitely going to impact Pakistan. But here, as we said, Pakistan have to play a more stronger role. Saudi Arabians are desperate. They're looking everywhere for friends. They've even signed a memorandum of understanding for military cooperation with India, without Pakistanis' concerns, without taking care of Pakistani sensitivities. Pakistan is very sensitive about this, because Saudis should not make any defense alliances with India, but Saudis are doing it. So if Saudis can do that, why can't Pakistan make defense alliances with Iran? And make Saudis understand that while you need India, while you're going to India, without our concern, without caring for what we feel, we can definitely make contact with Iran for Iran-Pakistan gas pipeline, or to have a Pakistan-Iran joint forum on Afghanistan. So Pakistan should not abandon Iran for the sake of Saudi Arabia at this moment when Saudi Arabia is most vulnerable. They depend on us for security. We can provide them security. They can pay for our economic crisis, but they should not interfere into Pakistan's national security and foreign policy needs, which they are interfering now. They are forcing us not to have terms with Iran. And Pakistanis are actually damaging our own interest by listening to Saudi Arabia, where Saudi Arabia does not care about Pakistan's national interest in making alliances with India.
So then, Mr. Zaid Hamid, the payment that has been given from Saudi Arabia, and into the Pakistan Development Funds. Because of that, we're seeing a jump start in our economy. You think receiving this payment, then Saudi Arabia might want some kind of a payback?
See, the payback,
and that's when Pakistan will get stuck with them?
There is only one payback that the Saudis want: security. And they'll get it. If they want security, Pakistan Army would send it.
But won't they use Pakistan against Qatar, against Syria, against supporting Syrian rebels?
This is one thing which is absolutely decided. Pakistan Army will never be used against any other Muslim country. Even if Saudi Arabia tries to force Pakistan Army into settling its conflict with other regional neighboring Muslim countries, this will not happen. Pakistan would go for security, Saudi Arabia, perhaps for the security of the royal family, perhaps for the protection of Makkah and Medina, the holy sites, but not to invade other Muslim lands on behalf of Saudis. This will never happen.
Mr. Zaid Hamid, we have just a couple of minutes left, and I would like to touch base on some of the things happening in India as well. The news from there is that Deoband have also supported Modi in these elections. Now, what does this mean?
You see, Deoband is a school in India, and historically this school, Darul Uloom Deoband, have been supporting the Hindus against Muslims. It's a Muslim school supposedly, and they were the most vehement opponents of creation of Pakistan. They opposed Quaid-e-Azam, they opposed Allama Iqbal, they opposed the creation of Pakistan and supported Congress. Historically, they have been supporting Congress. But now they have completely surrendered themselves. They offered complete support to Narendra Modi, the butcher of Gujarat. And that has made the Muslims of India furious. The Kashmiris are furious, the Shias in India are furious, the Barelvis in India are furious, and Darul Uloom Deoband has put their entire weight to support Narendra Modi despite his track record of butchering Muslims in India. It's the track record of Deoband. I'm not surprised. And interestingly, but the serious point is that Pakistan also have a huge population of Deobands who are influenced by Darul Uloom Deoband India. All the militancy in Pakistan, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, Lashkar-e-Jhangvi, all the militant organizations which the government is trying to talk to right now are Deobands actually. And this decision of Darul Uloom Deoband India to support Narendra Modi against Muslims is going to further strengthen the resolve of these militant Deobandis against Pakistan. While their parent organization has declared war against the Pakistani state, these militant Deobandis would also get a boost to wage their war more ferociously against the Pakistani state. So impact of this decision in India would definitely going to come into Pakistan as well, because all militant organizations who are fighting the state of Pakistan draw their inspiration from Deoband in India.
Mr. Zaid Hamid, one more question regarding India. The Guardian paper has asked the question that is Modi the savior of India, or it will be the worst nightmare of India?
You see, this is interesting.
Why this speculation? Why this confusion?
Guardian is one of the biggest newspapers of Britain now, and we had raised this alarm months ago that Narendra Modi is coming into power, and that's dangerous for the entire region. And Guardian has asked this question: is he going to be the savior or the worst nightmare of India? It's like, as we said, it's like a Hitler coming into power in India having nuclear weapons, and the whole world would be at stake. Now the world is beginning to realize the alarm that we had raised weeks ago. This British newspaper has now subtly asked the same question: is Modi going to be the worst nightmare of India? He's not going to be worst nightmare of India. He's going to be the worst nightmare of the world. A madman, an insane butcher, the butcher of Gujarat, going to have nuclear weapons and going to lead over 1 million strong Indian army. And this is coming. It's happening in the next few months. And the whole world would be at the verge of war if this madman comes into power.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zaid Hamid. Viewers, as you saw that we discussed about the peace talk process continuing in Pakistan with TTP, and then at the same time, according to Mr. Zaid Hamid, that there are news that militants might get access to chemical weapons via India to be used within Pakistan as the same framework as it was done in Syria to destroy the repetition of Syrian army. Let's hope that this does not happen to be true. But if it does happen to be true, then we should be ready for the consequences. That's it for tonight. See you all next Sunday. Until then, Allah Hafiz and good night.